She's at the school thing.
Yeah. School performance. She'll be here
I
7:30.
thought there was a lot of
7:15.
cars over there.
So, Mike, we're gonna get going.
Okay.
Leave the lawyer alone. Put him down. Put the lawyer down. Scott, we ready? Oh my, I apologize. It would have been more formal. Okay, so we are convened, and the first order of business is an executive session, and there is a proposed motion.
So I'll move to find that premature public knowledge regarding civil litigation the town is a party to, and the labor relations agreement with employees would clearly place the town at a substantial disadvantage, and further move that we enter into executive session to discuss civil litigation the town is party to, and a labor relations agreement with employees, and a possible real estate transaction under Title I, Sections 313A, 1B, and E, and Title I, Sections 313A2 of the Vermont statutes, and invite Town Manager Eric Wells to join all three discussions, Town Labor Attorney Joe Farnham to join the discussion on the labor relations agreement with the employees, and Town Attorney David Rue to join the civil litigation discussion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion?
If I may add Terry to also invite for the labor relations agreement discussion, Shirley Goodell Lackey and Fire Chief Aaron Collette via Zoom.
And I will add those two to the motion.
I'll still second.
Okay. And no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are in executive session.
Let's go back.
You'll like it. It'll be good. It'll be good. Yeah, I'm gonna do just a half for VCM. I
So
decided
folks, we're gonna,
something to do.
we're gonna come
New
into
York lottery.
session. I don't know if that's the right word. We're gonna continue work. So I'm gonna hit the gavel and everything. There we go. So we're back from executive session. That did take considerably longer than I had, any of us had expected. But anyway, we're back on the agenda. So the first thing on the agenda, the minutes of January 9, 2024.
Move the approval of the minutes of January 9th, 2024 with any necessary corrections.
Is there a second?
Second.
Page 2. Hearing no corrections, all those in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next, the minutes from February 6th, 2024. Is there a motion?
Move the approval of the minutes of February 6th, 2024 with any necessary corrections.
Is there a second?
Second.
Page 1.
I didn't know if we just wanted to indicate that I attended remotely.
Page 2. Page 3. Hearing no corrections, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next on the agenda is public comment. This is an opportunity for anybody either in the room or participating online to make any comment that you want. It can be something that's on the agenda. You don't have to wait necessarily for the agenda item to come up. Usually, oftentimes, it's better if you do, but you don't have to. It could be about anything at all. So is there anybody in the room that has public comment? And I'm seeing nobody. Eric, is there anybody online?
Nope, just staff.
Okay. Next, Schmoker Trail realignment.
We'll have our conservation planner, Simon Miles, take the lead on walking forward.
Hello, Simon.
Well, I'll try and be brief. So we have the Schmoker trail, which connects Sunset Hill and Oak Hill Road. It's part of our crosstown trail, runs on private land through easements that the town holds. The landowner for the western section of the trail, Glenn Card, who's here if you've got any questions for him, farms the land. The trail currently runs through the wooded area on sort of the northern boundary of his parcel. He'd just like to move it out of that wooded area to the south, so it runs along the edge of the hayfield. Two main reasons, really, to sort of take out a lot of invasive trees that are in the land and open it up in response to his sort of forest management plan requirements, and secondly, to create more pasture land, or rather return it. It was previously pasture land for his cattle. So we do have an easement on there. The terms of that easement do allow us to relocate the trail by mutual consent. It's been to Conservation Commission twice, and we did get public comment. Ultimately, the Conservation Commission did recommend realignment of the trail be agreed. Two reasons: it sort of complies with the easement. It provides meaningful public access across the land to get from two of our important areas, Five Tree Hill and Mud Pond, and it also helps the landowner farm his land, which is another sort of factor to consider in the trail easement. And secondly, it sort of shows town support for the continued agricultural use of the land, which is a town goal. And then lastly, but no means least, for the Conservation Commission, it does get rid of a load of invasives, which is a priority for them. So if it was agreed, we'd like to take it forward to the landowner this year. And that's it.
Questions from the board?
This might not even be relevant, but I was just trying to figure out, so eventually, this trail is gonna go between a hayfield and a cow pasture?
Correct, yeah.
Just right down the middle of a field, essentially?
At the moment, there's a sort of hayfield and it ends with some sort of newly established scrub forest. So that forest would sort of generally go away, but there'd be a number of trees left for sort of shade for the animals and things like that. And so the trail would run along that pasture land between it and the hayfield.
Okay.
Other questions from the board?
There's a stone wall that's there.
Are you? You, Mr. Card? Hi, come on in. So just for the record. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a seat.
So there's a stone wall that runs between the pasture and the hayfield, and there's another section that's already currently pasture, but basically it's going from one side of the stone wall to the other side of the stone wall. So there's basically going to be a space, stone wall, then about 20 to 25 feet, and then a pasture fence. So pretty simple move.
All right. There's something in here about, like an electric fence for, to keep your cattle
Yes.
on the other side. I've hiked on those with my dog sometimes. They're a little problematic, so, but, not that I'm gonna say you can't do it. It's just that I read that it was like, ooh, that's hard to do.
It can be hard. The dogs tend to learn after a little bit. But
Depends how smart the dog is.
everybody got their dog on a
Yeah.
leash, right?
Yeah, right, absolutely. That's Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
Any other questions? If not, there is a motion.
I'll move to reroute the Schmoker Trail as proposed.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. So, and Simon, is this your last meeting with us? Is that?
It is, yep.
Oh,
You're not nearly as sad about that
No, not at all. This has been great. I've really enjoyed working here. I've learned a huge amount from everyone I've met and all the different boards I've interacted with. So it's definitely been a positive experience. But sort of a few things have changed. My family sort of just decided we're going to relocate back to the UK.
Well, I was always impressed by your presentations and your ability to answer questions, and you're going to be missed.
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you so much
Thank
for all
you.
you've done for the town. Yeah.
So I was done a great job. Especially the Catamount license agreement, he shepherded that process through, and it was quite a lift. Great work.
Great. So, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll actually have him for the next item here.
Stay.
It doesn't,
Do it all over
it
again.
doesn't
Ted.
flow as well. Okay. Sorry. Next item. Sure enough, Allen Brook bridge damage.
So I just asked Simon to give a brief update on this. Unfortunately, the Allenbrook Bridge off of Village Community Park that we recently did some improvements to was damaged with December rainstorm. So we're trying to figure out the next steps there. And just a brief overview, Simon, of what happened.
Yeah. So like Eric said, we had that late December flood. We've got a lot of water coming down the Allenbrook, and it's sort of it's quite impressive. It really did fill the floodplain in the Allenbrook Nature Trail, and you saw the floodplain doing its work. Unfortunately, it did damage the boardwalk structure, which is, you probably know, is the structure down at the central school end of the Allenbrook Nature Trail. It's about 160 feet long. I sort of generally think of it as like 4 components. So you've got the viewing platform nearest the school, then you've got a boardwalk on posts, and you've got like a bridge that crosses the Allenbrook Channel, and then another boardwalk that takes you up to Creek's Edge and the rest of the trail. Those of you who've been here longer than I have will know that beaver's been present on the nature trail for a very long time, and we do have a history of reacting to their activities. Sort of they have established themselves in the boardwalk, and I think that sort of combined with the floods and the nature of channels to sort of reform in the floodplain has resulted in a new channel opening up at the viewing platform end of the boardwalk. Unfortunately, that's had the effect of eroding two of the posts that support the boardwalk and sort of basically just taking out the ground that supported them. So that as a consequence, the boardwalk has sagged. So we have taken the decision, we just sort of closed it as best I'm able to close it. And the Winooski Valley Park District have installed some temporary supports for it. So I think the boardwalk was probably established mid-90s, and then it's been through two sort of major refurbishments, one in 2008, and again, as Eric mentioned, in 2022. So I've reached out to the firm and the contractor who were involved in the latest refurbishment. So that was conducted in 2022. Just sort of summary, that was primarily sort of redecking using black locust wood, which was really nice hardwood that we're very optimistic is going to last a long time. And then we replaced the joists and beams on the original 2008 supports. And then we also installed a sort of bridge across the channel, which is built from four helical piers. So that gets us across that. And you might, if you're familiar with the boardwalk, that's where the sort of railings are as you go across the channel. So the engineers have come up with a preliminary concept working with the contractor. That involves essentially replicating that sort of bridge that we built elsewhere. So 4 helical piers and a sort of 25-foot span near the viewing platform, and that gets us over the new channel. So we've had a look at that and sort of installing a new bridge there, and then also a railing because it is now above the channel. So that's sort of where we've reached, sort of thinking about our options to take it forward, looking at, what else we can do. I think I'm probably landing on this. This is probably the best option. Just interested in any feedback or questions you might have on the situation.
Yeah, and I've been working with Simon on this, and we're looking at the financial component of it as well. Probably upwards of, safe to say, over $30,000 for this repair. So I'll be bringing back to you some ideas as we work through this design and process, and potentially some ARPA funds could be used to offset that as well. But we're going to firm up those numbers right now, but want to bring to the board's attention that's the situation there. With keeping it closed the best we can for safety reasons. So hopefully have some direction in the next month or two of what our plan might be. But any questions the board has, Simon's been the lead on this.
So this is, I'm trying to visualize all the pieces that you're explaining, because I've been across that a million times, that bridge a million times, but not recently, obviously.
Yeah.
Because it's closed. So is this new design gonna, this is not the last time this channel's gonna move, so is this new design taking that into account?
It does. So part of the design would include armoring the bank underneath where the bridge is to try and stop any more erosion. I can't completely predict how the channel is going to move,
Right.
or if the beavers move in elsewhere and dam the channel. Having observed it over the last 6 weeks, I think that the main channel is probably going to stay the dominant channel, which is where most of the water goes through. This is only going to be like an overflow channel. What we've done is we've, as well as if we armor the banks, we've also sort of tried to start protecting the vegetation there. And I think there's two sort of streams that feed the feeder channel, the overflow channel. So I think one of them is quite small, and the other one, the beavers have already started damming that. So I think that's going to reduce that element. And I think the Allen Brook will probably stay where it is, and this drainage channel will just become an overflow when we get a lot of water coming down the watershed.
Because that's what we've got to plan for now, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're just fixing it, we got to make it resilient, that's all.
Yeah.
And I saw today that looks like a FEMA declaration is being applied for that event, but Chittenden County's not on the list. So I don't think this will push it over. We should look into that, though. If we're close, maybe we can get there.
Make the bridge a little bigger, maybe it'll help the whole county.
In terms of timeline for, the project itself, assuming we can get funding kind of figured out relatively quickly, what are we looking at for a timeline for the actual construction and potential reopening?
So we'd want to do some actual detailed design on the bridge to make sure for obvious reasons. I know that the firm who are involved are pretty keen to be involved in this next step. I think they consider it one of the projects they like. So they're keen to be involved. I think they could turn around design quite quickly within a month or so. The contractor themselves, likewise, are quite proud of this structure. They told me they are actually booked for construction this season. So we'd obviously have to take the decision whether to sole source with them or go out to bids. They did tell me they just informally they'd probably find a way of squeezing us in this year if we could get the design resolved and the funding. And I think it'd probably be a week or two's work.
Other questions?
And who's doing the design of this work? For the,
It's a company called Engineering Ventures. So they'd be designing the how the bridge is going to work, and they also take a bit of advice from the contractor. The contractor actually helped us come up with this concept.
so it'll hopefully be a good design.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
To be continued, but to make the board aware of that's going on.
Well, thank you again, Simon.
So,
Next on the agenda, the community center library project next steps. Yep. Eric, can you do the intro?
yeah, so I'll give a brief introduction, and we have John Hemmelgarn with us from Black Road Design, who's been our architect partner in this project, and we've got staff here and library trustees and other community members as well as part of this discussion. So last October, you might recall the Community Center Scoping and Library Assessment Steering Committee delivered a final feasibility report to the board recommending the town pursue an addition renovation to the library and a community recreation center facility in the Growth Center. Select Board's allocated some ARPA funding to continue this project along. This funding is planned to be used for site analysis in the Growth Center to see what locations may support a future community recreation center facility and for design work for a library addition renovation. So obviously there's many decision points for the Select Board to think about. So our intention this evening is to start a discussion on that and what that may look like. Preface, the board doesn't need to make any final decisions tonight. These are potentially two very significant projects with many check-ins and steps and no-go decision making to happen here. But we thought it'd be good to kind of frame these and think about how to delineate these projects. So kind of one thing I'll leave you with here is these are two distinctive projects now has come out as a recommendation from the steering committee. So the Select Board to think about how you want to treat those projects in terms of a timeline, financial components as well, and project development. You have a steering committee to help work through this initial thought of, is it a combined, is it two separate, and landing on this recommendation of the addition and the new facility. So you could consider reestablishing the charge for that steering committee and having them focus on the community recreation center component of it. And I'd suggest pursuing the library project to, it would make sense for the library trustees to take the lead in that, or as we're getting to talk about design work for that and timeline as the trustees are the body to advise on that component. And of note, our director, Jane Kearns, has been working, there's a Vermont Libraries capital grant due in March with there's about $16 million of ARPA money available for library capital projects. John's been helping us as well think about how we may apply here, and they can speak more to this, but at the very least, we can apply for components that we need to have occur in the library no matter what the timeline looks like here. Lighting, electrical panel work, weatherization, those type of things. So can help get the bottom line down if we can get some grant money to help with that regardless here. And so part for the board to think about, and it's your decision to decide, do you want to treat these as two separate projects or not, or do you want to have things tied together? And if you were to think of a most aggressive timeline, kind of taking that as one benchmark to think about, for a library addition renovation project, the most aggressive you could probably be is to think about a bond vote this November on election day. And if the board made a decision that's what you wanted to pursue, then we'd certainly need to get some things aligned here quickly in the next month or two. Speaking with John, that is feasible, but there'd have to be some decisions made in the short term here if that's an option to pursue. And of course, there's a no point for if that was the scenario to play out. It's a special town meeting, needs to be more than 30 days before election day. We'd have a firm idea on numbers and more talk about financing leading up to that. There's nothing that says you have to do that. It's your prerogative. You could decide to have that on a future town meeting if you want to move that project forward. On the community recreation center side, that project has a longer runway. We don't have a facility and we don't have any property right now. So part of this next trounce of funding is thinking about using the good work of the steering committee and the objective look in the growth center to see what sites may be available to meet those needs and to get an idea of what that could encompass. And that could involve, if the board wants to move that project forward, it could be staged, it could be looking at acquiring property with the future intent of that facility. It could be tying something together with purchasing the property and building the facility. There's many different options to approach it, but we're at a point now for the board to think about how it wants to develop these projects at this phase, and there's many check-in points here for these. They're significant. So I think I'll pause there. I asked John, his firm, he works with timelines and projects like this extensively. So have time to chat with John just to have your questions answered and him to provide his insights.
Are the trustees going to be presenting anything tonight as well? Okay. Didn't want to explain to you if you had something.
Todd's here.
He's waiting for your question.
Yeah, I'm going to answer your questions. What Eric just gave you, he and I have discussed, and again, some of those were my questions, as whether this is going to be one project or two moving forward. Certainly, as the committee made their recommendations to you, it was clearly as two separate projects. Your choice to keep them linked. But there's really no reason for them to be other than a political decision that it was, felt there was a better chance of success to have them linked together. The other thing I would stress is that if we were going to move the library project forwards, and because there is a site essentially chosen, we have got a conceptual design that I think everyone is happy with. We are in a position to move ahead fairly quickly with that project. Having said that, there's still a lot of work to do. I know we put out there things that look like they're nice plans, and we put a price tag on it, but it was really based on a very limited amount of information, and we would really want to be much more comprehensive in terms of looking at the details of the project, what it would entail, how we're going to build it, what it would cost, to be able to really confidently put a number in front of the community, to be sure that we would be able to bring that project in on that budget. And that takes a lot of work. And then again, Jane has done a lot of great work in defining what their needs are, but we're going to dive in even deeper if we get to go ahead and do that. So there is some work to do. We would, to meet a November bond vote schedule, we would likely be meeting every 2 to 3 weeks with a committee, which is, I think, another good reason to not have it be this group. So we would do that. We would develop some additional detail to the plans. We would ultimately get our engineers involved including the structural engineer you just heard about. Uh, we would then eventually, having defined that scope, get it to a professional cost estimator that would put a much more specific number on that. We would include some contingencies there for all the things that we need contingencies for, so that we're not asking for more money later. And then there comes a whole phase of, I call it kind of scope and budget reconciliation. Because at some point, you end up with too small scope to make it successful and too high of a price to make it viable. You have to kind of get those so that they overlap and that you actually have enough scope that people can support it for a price that's low enough that people can afford it. So that's the exercise there, and that can take anywhere from 2 days to 2 months moving forwards. And we need to do that then in time to properly warn the vote and have it on the ballot for November. So the really time is of the essence if that were the direction you wanted to move. We can do it. I think that the library is sufficiently motivated to work towards that goal. So the alternative then is to take, let me back up a second. The other risk that goes with that is that if you go too fast, it can be more difficult to bring voters along so that they feel sufficiently informed to be able to make that decision. So along with this is a public information process to make sure people are aware of what's happening. Nobody likes thinking that they heard about the project the first time when the warning came out.
Yeah, but you don't know that everybody in town gets Jane's newsletter email, so it won't be a problem.
But not everyone reads them. So that it's a very interesting dynamic process, and if you don't start along that process, you definitely won't get there by November. You can always slow it down whenever you feel it's appropriate. So the rec center project.
Wait, can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So first of all, I think if I remember, you used like a $400 a square foot kind of number for the library, which I thought was actually pretty reasonable from what I've seen, but yes, you don't remember?
It was something like that.
Yeah.
Again, we put contingencies in there and we try to put inflation factors on there, given the fact we had no idea when it was going to move ahead.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the thing we've seen with school construction is that if you wait until town meeting, you're probably not going to be breaking ground in the summer,
no.
right? So you'd have to wait a whole nother year, where November you might have a shot at it.
I think you're better off with today's environment in the construction industry, you're probably better off voting in March, designing through the summer, the fall, and bidding it out and getting your pricing done in the winter before people are busy. You heard Simon just say that, the contractor is already booked for this summer. It's February.
Right.
So if you bid it out now, a bigger project like that, that's the best time. It gives them a chance to order things like elevators, which take months and months and months to get these days. So I would say that it's a better, if you can vote, whenever you vote, you're still going to try to get it to the.
So November of 2024 or town meeting of 25 is still construction in summer of 26.
Probably. I mean, we could try to, rush it through, get I should say push hard, get a vote in November, try to somehow get construction started by the end of summer that next year, and work through the winter and be done by the end.
It's hard with the school right there too. It'd be hard to do that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the construction of the library is going to be disruptive to library activities.
So the school is what I was worried about.
Oh, I see.
Building in the summer is a few less kids in the building, so you can.
Yeah, at the school, but the library, there's people in there all year round.
Are they really?
There are.
I believe that the community has universal support for the library, so I think we need to definitely separate the two between, the community center and the library. I think that's two very separate, different things. I don't remember what the cost was. I thought it was 19 versus 21 million for the addition versus the new library. I don't know how that decision was really reached to add the addition versus a new library, because there were too many comments, I thought, at that public forum about the lack of parking. There's no parking at the current location. I think, I took a ride over to the South Burlington Library. I thought that was an amazing library. I really, really liked it. I thought it was a really smart idea. They did it in a TIF district, which would have helped with the financing of the library. I feel that, adding on is, to me, is to a building never really works out. The library's been added on multiple times over the years. It's in the town green. I think to maintain that town to green in the historic district, not tear it up, change it. I realize the library has a lot of after-school programs. It's a great place for kids to go after school. But looking further into the future, I think locating a brand-new building for about the same price in the TIP district would save us a lot of money.
Greta, do you remember, I can't remember, I'm obviously blanking on numbers too, but wasn't it pretty
I think it was like-
solidly supported to keep it in the village?
Yeah, I think from between the committees, between the steering committee itself, the library trustees, the pretty much everybody, and we heard from in the surveys. Such a large number of people really felt the importance of keeping the library where it is in that current location. And that was ultimately a big factor in why we decided that the community center would be in the growth center and the library would stay in the village, because people, wanted the two touchstones, and to have centerpieces for the town be in the different locations. But yeah, again, time and time again, we heard from folks that they wanted the library to stay where it was. So that was the decision that was made. I think the numbers too, I think it was something like $12 million.
I don't think it was 19 or 20.
Yeah, it was definitely,
That's for the library.
it was definitely less than that.
The 20 million is something was at the low end of the
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
rec center cost.
But, in terms of the TIF district, the TIF district it would be wonderful and all of that. The TIF district, though, is not something we've even, it hasn't even, we've heard the beginning stages of it. That is so many years down the road in terms of, being an option for this. And so, it's my thought that, we have the momentum right now on these projects. And so, we need to use that momentum from commitment from the folks in the town, and we've heard from so many folks that this is what they want. So, I see it as, really the question is now whether or not, are we separating the two projects is the first decision point.
Yeah, I'm just pulling up the numbers so we can, it's been a few months here, so good to refresh these, but these are the numbers at the time. Yeah, it was like 424 a square foot, I think, and it kind of averaged out, and it was like a 7.8 for the addition, if that looks familiar, John.
Does,
I had 8 in my head, so
Oh, well, I
thought maybe this is
we are shooting high
so
too, and then.
then you can see if you slide down that the new library then was about 10. So it was about a $2.5 million difference. I think the other thing that you probably would also be added to that difference would be the cost of land acquisition and land development, whereas that's one of the other nice things about having it as an addition is that you've already got that property, sort of.
But
That
parking,
property's already available.
Well, and parking was a big issue, and the committee itself spent a lot of time talking about parking. And parking is a new plan for parking is part of this project. There is plans for where there will be additional parking located for the library.
on the west side of the green.
Yes.
this, I guess, a question for you, Eric, or Shirley, but can you remind me what timing lines up with like our first principal payment being when we've paid off the public safety buildings?
FY27, I believe. the bond was 3 series, so I think the first year of maturity for the first series was FY27. I can get that. Unless Shirley knows off the top of her head.
We just decided that construction would be in 26, so that might line up pretty well with the principal payment in 27.
Public safety building,
But when they paid off the debt,
Here's our debt schedule right here.
so
Police and fire.
it's in the budget, it wouldn't be an issue.
Public safety bill. So you see there's 3 series right here. So the first series, the last principal payment of the 165 is done in after FY26. And then the second bond matures in 27. And then the third bond matures in 28. So look at the bottom lines here. This is our debt commitments right now. And then certainly if the bonds proposed at town meeting day are approved, it adds a little bit. But you start to get the big chunks coming off with the public safety bonds. The sidewalk and path as well, that's going to mature in 26. So you kind of add those 2 principal numbers. You're offsetting that to some extent, knowing that new construction debt service would be higher than when this debt was taken on, but helps to swap old debt with new debt.
Right, instead of just adding.
I know my neighbor wanted to remodel his house. He ended up tearing it down and rebuilding a new one. It was cheaper. Got exactly what he wanted. Ideal.
I think we face a lot of pushback, and I don't think that we can even, because of the historic nature of the library, would not even be an option,
I
but
don't mean that location. I just mean a
Yeah.
new building. Usually a new building gives you what you want, not piecemealing something together.
It's true.
I haven't
A good designer can help a lot with it.
Do you know one, John?
Well, I would just, I'm being a little flip there. I apologize for that. But I've done a lot of public projects in my career, predominantly schools. But again, the number of new schools that are built is extremely small. The number of school renovations that happen are extremely large. And there's a reason for that, and it's because it is less expensive. We're not changing the use of the building. So it's a library now. It will continue to be a library. A lot of the functions that are there will stay in the same place in the building, and that helps to save cost as well. So there are advantages. There are disadvantages. Obviously, constructing the building while it maintains its operations is a challenge, but it's actually going to be easier than what we would typically see with school construction.
You have drawings of the new, like this, of what the new library versus the old library looks like?
Yeah, they were.
they're all included in that packet. Yeah, we had. That's presented to us.
They're very diagrammatic.
Yeah.
But the concept is there that this, because the building, the site slopes down there towards the back of the site, that we would actually drop the addition down a half a level to keep the ridge from being quite so tall.
I know Jane mentioned the Shelburne Library, I believe is a similar project. I haven't been over there, I apologize. I did go to the South Burlington Library, got a tour of that. Pretty eye-opening. Pretty amazing library.
We should look up how much that cost.
Yeah, it's a larger town.
22. So well, about 3 times as much.
Yeah, they've
They
got
raised a lot of money for it too.
They got a $50 million town budget, I think,
So
versus our 15.
just in the interest of time and everybody's time here, do we want to talk about just that initial decision again of, are we in consensus that we would separate the projects? Do we want to keep them together?
Separate.
Yeah.
I think we should separate them.
Yep. Okay.
I'm not going to argue the location,
So then the next question, right, is the timeline? Is that, I'm sorry, I'm like taking over, I apologize.
No need to be. Yeah, how aggressive of a timeline would the select board like to target for library edition?
I mean, I think that the difference of the 4 months there, if it means that, we get things right and we slow it down and we can get as much public input as possible and really keep people informed. And, the library trustees, I'm guessing, although you're super committed, obviously, you may not want to be meeting every 2 weeks for the next like 6 months to do. But ultimately, if it's not going to affect the timeline of the construction, like if construction's still going to happen, if we can spread it out for you and not have you burn out, to me that makes more sense to push it back.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Until
I don't see
March
it with what we would gain
2025.
by rushing it, and, you know, you could get lost in the presidential election
Yeah.
mess, so.
I think doing most of the heavy construction when school's out of session would be a big deal.
Make a big deal, make a good difference.
I mean, during school openings and closings,
Can't get in there now.
gridlock now.
And if we have more room in our budget because we've paid off one of the bonds for the public safety buildings or close to it, it'd probably be better.
Yeah, certainly the financial piece is going to take a lot of work and thinking here. We used a consultant. I got their draft report a couple weeks ago. We just asked them to kind of come up with ideas for us. You know, part of it I want to look into more is more of the financing options. They didn't dig into that as much as I thought they may, but you know, we go through the municipal bond bank and we see what the bond sale rates are. But are there options for us to look at other bond sale opportunities, even kind of dividing the debt up in different portions as well, if we can get a good rate on it. I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's worth pursuing just to see, you know, taking out a $10 million loan, if 0.25% of an interest rate is significant. And if we can find the best deal, that's the best interest of the town. So thinking about, you know, is there a fundraising component? You know, you have for the library, for example, there's Friends of the Library that can kind of be a branch of that as well. So I think it's there's a lot of pieces to figure out ultimately what you want to ask for a bond, with how to make these numbers work if you want to move forward.
I think the only just other thing to mention, I totally agree with splitting the projects is the right thing to do, but the one thing that we can't let this project get so big that the second project becomes unaffordable. So we really have to, the targets that we talked about, when we talked about them as one project, should be the target.
Agreed.
Because I could see it kind of scope creep and, but we have another really important project that'll be coming shortly behind it, hopefully, and mindful of that, even though we separate the projects.
Okay, so it sounds like we have consensus on that. Okay, now what information would the board like to have to make a go, no-go decision on either project at this time? My answer to that question is I have no idea.
Wasn't expecting everyone.
Yeah. I'll know it when I see it.
Wait, a go, no go on the library project? We know how much it's gonna cost, right? Yeah, we're gonna get for that amount of money.
So what I'm, just to recap, what I'm hearing is, you know, the earliest to consider a bond for the library would get March 2025. You have money authorized for advancing the design work right now. So Blackbird Design will be working on that. And it sounds like consensus to work with the library trustees on that component of it. And we'll work on getting the numbers and getting the details together. And so it'd probably be a conversation for the board to start having next late October, early November. Just kind of think leading up to town meeting day next year, you know, fast forward to January 11 months from now, when you need to finalize your warning for 2025 and kind of work backwards from there. So, you know, kind of thinking with a decision like this for a significant bond, I think it'll be helpful for John's team and the library trustees to help kind of set some milestone check-in points here to help the scope of work play out. And we can brainstorm those too, but just it's 11 months away, but it's not that far. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anything that you get to the point where those numbers that we were looking at are just completely wrong, and we have to rethink this in a major way, you know, we should put the brakes on before we get to the very end, and then you tell us that those numbers just aren't going to work.
The process is set up to give some
Good.
checkpoints at various places along the line. One good news is we have seen construction cost inflation drop. It has flattened out significantly in the last couple of projects I've bid. We've actually come in on the budget that was projected. So we've at least gotten to the point where we can start to accurately predict those again. So that's good. And I would still recommend moving ahead relatively quickly, maybe even the 2 to 3 week meeting schedule.
They said they'd love to.
At the outset, to try to get the design set a little better. And then it gives more time for public engagement and scope adjustment. I was impressed with your use of the word scope creep. That's a very, it's a very real thing. And
Yeah.
it's something that we try to watch out for. Remind people of every time they have a decision point to make.
So then thinking about like the community center project on the other side of that, what would be the next steps? You mentioned like, possibly the steering committee. Would the rec committee maybe take a bigger role in this next phase as well? Or would it be, the steering committee, or should you be recharged to do that?
I think the steering committee's got a good sense from all the work they've put in. I think there's been liaison Bob Metz, who's the chair of the recreation committee, served on that committee. There could be thought of recalibrating that committee a little bit too. I don't know. Carla was great in that committee, but I think she might be busy on the trustees side. So there might be, I could draft a revised charge, and maybe there's a call for whether it's another person on the rec committee or a call for another community member to step in and kind of thinking about what's the right size for that group to steer that project.
Sense.
Because we set some money aside for that project as well, right? In
Yeah,
ARPA.
the 150 number, I know John and I are working kind of on scope with that, as there's some subcontractors to get quotes from still on that, and just see how moving both of these along, how that plays out. But that's the intent, to be able to analyze potential sites, and given the town's owning property, really, the small property owner Maple Tree Place is nothing for this. It's a part of a parking lot in your Shaws, but it's I'll turn to John, because I think, as I understand the exercise, is to, we did it this way so we would know basically how big of a rectangle to draw. Was my just thought in my head. Okay, how big of a rectangle we need to draw? And there's going to be constraints in that rectangle for the scope that we're talking about. Then we actually need to see what land is available.
We would probably want to do a little bit more in-depth discussions with Todd and the rec department about asking questions like, how much parking will you be needing? Because if we want to evaluate sites, we're going to need to make sure that it's big enough. Also, as Mike was saying, you've got future expansion potentially. You don't want to get a site that's too small. You want to make sure that it's big enough, not only for today's needs, but the future needs for this group of people 23 years from now. So I think those are the things we want to do. So a little more design work, especially on the site side, to just define what the needs are a little further. And then really kind of brainstorming all the different potential sites that are there. We can eliminate some of those quickly. Some of them, probably 2 or 3, you're going to want to look at more closely. We'll have to do some more site investigations, maybe some digging a couple holes, whatever. Or maybe a little bit of site planning on that, just to verify feasibility. And so there's really kind of 3 pieces. There's what we're going to do in the library to go from where we are now to a bond vote. Then with the rec center, we need to identify the site. We were able to identify the site for the library on the last round of work. We want to get that. We want to be able to get that far on the rec department or the rec center, community center now. And then there would be that to go from there to a bond vote design with a real cost. So that's kind of a third piece. So I have 2 of them now, and then another phase for the community center.
And acquiring the property that we
But that happens in between those next 2 phases for that.
Yeah, and this is, at some point, we need to have a conversation about operation costs for Brook Community Center, and that would be paid for, so.
Yeah.
Would it be possible to do 2 different bond votes, one for the property and then later on another vote to build it?
Sure.
I think we need to determine the wants versus the needs too.
Well,
It's presented in the interviews as wants, not needs.
the the public is going to tell us whether there's really a want for it, because they're going to have to vote on it and fund it, so, or not.
Okay. Library folks, you've been listening. Do you have input? And what's your thoughts on what we've done so far? I was going to say, you always had more to say when we were on the school board.
No, I mean, the last time that I was here, I just expressed, well, Lynn and I both expressed our hope that things would keep going. And, getting the extra funds has really helped that. And it's really encouraging. I will say that just these past couple months, I was getting my petition to run for library trustee again. And a lot of people brought up the fact that, they're excited about these changes that are coming up in the town of Williston. With the library specifically was what we were talking about, but then also about a potential recreation community center. And I think that the way the scoping committee worked really was great to get people involved and to have them feel like they have a voice. And so I'm really happy to see that, that progress is being made. It's hard to think about waiting, but it's better to do it right and, and to do it well, so that when it comes to time for people to vote, that they feel like they're going to be getting a quality outcome and that they're going to be behind it. And so I appreciate all of the time that you put in thinking about it. And Greta was on the team too, and Eric and then John and Jane and Lynn, everyone who was part of this, because I think it's going to be really cool for the town of Williston, so thank you for that. And that's all.
Thank you.
Carla. Any other questions or comments or concerns?
Lynn or Todd, I don't know. I know you from the community side, senator side, or the steering committee side. I don't know if either of you.
Come on, Lynn, you haven't been quiet yet, but you have to come up to the table.
Excuse me. Well, I think I'd like to just keep going with what Carla said. I think we have to keep the ball rolling forward. As soon as we kind of stall on this, we're going to be in trouble. I think by getting that money set aside and doing some planning, I have lots of great ideas of where it should be, but taking me up.
You're on the committee, right?
Yeah, I am. I can't try to bring it up, but no, it's it. I just think we have to keep moving forward to this because Williston's too important. And it's something that I think is healthy and necessary for this town. And I think if you've gone through Colchester and you see how they made the decision, now they've gone forward, it's really exciting to see what's going on there and to see that possibility happening in Williston. So has anyone seen what's going on in Colchester?
Nope.
It's really cool. And it's
Piles
not
of
that.
dirt,
it's-
machinery, and
No, the building is up. So, it's doesn't require, you need enough land, but it's not as much as you think you might need. So, I don't know. I just want us to keep moving forward.
There's a big difference in Colchester. It's just not costing the town anything,
No, because I think they planned before and they had their
right?
fees built into it. And that is, and that's the thing. I think and you're so right on that, Terry. I think the thing is that this has got to be a commitment for Williston. And it's a very different commitment.
Absolutely.
And it's a tough time right now to be thinking about that money. So it's kind of nice that it's not coming up in November, but I think that it's on the docket and we keep moving forward. I think is important, but boy, the money's going to be an issue.
Yep.
And that's where we see whether people want to put their money where their mouth is.
Yep.
And there's ways to do it, but that's why we have Todd. So, I don't know, I just am thankful that you guys are wanting this to go forward and helping us to see this, because there's a lot of people have done this 3 times. And here we are again. I'd
And I
like
was
to
one of
be-
them.
Yeah, I'm with you, Terry. So I'd like to see us be able to walk into something rather than imagine it. So I really thank you for your commitment and in a tough time that we're in right now. But it ends up being for the town and for the people. So thank you.
Thanks, Carla.
Anything else on this topic? If not,
Should we have a motion to separate the?
there was no formal action.
No, I don't think you need to take formal action. Just looking for consensus so I can direct John and his work and how we have the advisory. I'll come back with the board with probably a revamped charge to consider for the steering committee, probably at your March meeting.
Thanks.
Great.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Next agenda item, temporary events permit, Truckin' Tuesdays at Adams Farm.
So Adams Farm's done this event, I think it might be their 5th year now. So it's a series of events, so it requires a temporary event permit. It's included in your packet. Staff's reviewed, has no objections. It's been a well-run event for a number of years. Would recommend adoption of the select board.
Any questions from Derek? Is there a motion?
I move to approve a temporary event permit for the Truckin' Tuesday series at Adams Farm Market for 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Manager's report.
Yeah, let's hit a few highlights. Quarterly report wrapped up. Thanks for Aaron Dickinson for getting that together. So I included that in hard copies and in digital copies, depending how you get your packet. Sent you a note last week on this about the ARPA funds. We're looking at this. I know originally was going to plan to have discussion tonight on some allocations, and simply the agenda got busy anyway. But I chatted with Ted about this. We think there's a good opportunity here to remove these timelines that are attached to it. A number of towns have done this in consultation with our auditors and VLCT. We just need to get some just firm process right now for it. It would essentially involves moving it away from an ARPA fund and to book the money as excess revenue in a single year, and then you can commit that fund balance as a committed fund balance. Don't call it ARPA, but call it like Community Projects Fund. You end up in the same place, but it removes the need to decide how to commit it by the end of 24 and spend it by 26. So we're getting that feedback now just to be sure, and then I hope to get this to you in March, if not the meeting right after that. So if there's action to consider, you can consider those steps, and it would give you, as you make your ARPA decisions, removing those timelines, I anticipate may affect some of your decision making, knowing that you don't have.
Yeah, I think there was at least one Public Works thing that was like, there's no way that's happening by the time of the
Right.
deadline, right? So it would be good to, I just dismissed it, or it wasn't even on the list, and I was thinking maybe it's a timeline thing, so.
Yeah.
We don't really need any more just choices, Eric.
Well, my one hesitation with this is it sounds awesome, and I like the obviously the having the more flexibility. I worry that the longer it gets drawn out, though, the more there's just going to be things that are going to come up that
Nibble away
we're
at it.
going to be like, well, okay, now we're just going to use it for this and this budget item and this budget item rather than for intentionally planned community projects. So
I think my goal would be to get this to you in March, and then at Ted's discretion, schedule that discussion probably in an April timeline to move that in.
That'll be after the town.
Yep. Go ahead, Shereen.
So I'm just gonna add to what Eric was saying, that, if you make this decision, we were talking about March, Eric, but the next reporting deadline for the ARPA money is March 31st by April 15th. So if a decision was made just to say it's general fund balance, then that would be the last ARPA report we have to do with this fund. So.
just a little plug for Shirley.
But wait, does that fall under the single audit, though, if we move it all?
It will fall into single audit anyway, just because.
Oh, I thought-
We're gonna spend, I'm gonna fall into single audit because of the.
Oh, okay. I thought it was during the budget, we thought you had thought you wouldn't have to do it, so,
Yeah, what would that factor?
yeah.
of that, right?
Thanks, Shirley. I know it's Leib's looping back on the energy efficiency and conservation block grant. I had Bruce look at our trucks. Let's see. Looking to see if the board would like to proceed with purchasing the mowers, and I think it would leave, I think it's around 10 or 12,000 remaining. I can come back with some options for that. Melinda suggested could use it for technical assistance, could look at some other items. For the trucks, the challenge are most of our fleet is heavy duty trucks, and they don't make that model in an EV yet. And our recreation truck, we just got a new one, and that was an insurance claim. It took about a year to get the new truck there. I'm thinking it'd be helpful for the board, kind of building a list of all our vehicles and a list of kind of status on EV and kind of timeline. And I think it could help kind of master plan the approach here for vehicles as well and kind of unpack that information. I know we have to make a decision on this, I think, by April, but I want to loop back and see if we just proceed with the mowers, if there would be consensus from the board on that. And that would
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it just seemed like there was consensus last time on that, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Simon's news. I'll also share in planning. We've promoted Andrew Plum, our planning technician, will be stepping into Simon's shoes here as conservation planner. Andrew's worked for us for a couple of years, doing a great job. Ability he's been overlapping with Simon a little bit on projects and formally made this promotion last week. So be able to spend some time with Simon over the next week. So that's good news. We'll advertise for that position. And finally, I got our local options tax report for the year. We're about $2.1 million. The tax department, so I remember we had a robust first quarter, but then our second quarter was low. So Shirley said, what's going on here? And they had a software issue. So the timeline they cut off for the first quarter was longer than it usually is. So that was a higher receipts. So then the second quarter is a little lower because that timeline was maybe a little bit too. So halfway through the year, we're still 2.1 million. We budgeted 3.6 million. We will watch this though, because we use those first quarter numbers to help model our budget for next year. So we use that as part of the model. We still think, we modeled, I think, about 4.1 for FY25 as well. So I think we're on pace this year. We'll keep an eye on it, but just to show it's challenging. We don't have a level of detail here we advocate for online for sales as well. So just to bring it to your attention. I talked to the tax department about that, and it's challenging when these things happen. So we've let
But
the
it's
state
good news
know
for
that.
FY24.
Yeah. FY24 is still trending towards over budget by half. So that's moving ahead, and that's all I have this evening. One quick other business item.
And there is other business.
Yeah, these are tobacco license renewals. We consulted with the town clerk, and she consulted with DLC. We're on all these kind of different timelines now for these. It used to be a uniform date, but now when the new ones can start from the new date. So the guidance we've received is to consider a motion to renew the licenses and the separate endorsement. The name's escaping me right now. And then Sarah will go ahead and approve those for another year period.
No violations.
No violations that I've received.
Questions?
I need you to go do that one more time.
Sure. I didn't have the motion, the memo in front of me.
Yeah.
So the board, you need to renew all tobacco and tobacco substitute licenses. That's the name of it for an annual basis. These all run, they used to run from a April 30th to May 1st timeline each year. But now, same with liquor licenses, if someone applies for this, the one that's coming up is artisan vapor that came. That always runs on the date where it was originally granted. They don't do this uniform renewal. So you have all these potential licenses that are all staggered based on when they were initially established. So the board needs to renew things on a yearly basis. So the motion would be to renew everything for another year when it comes up due, as opposed to separate motions based on the date of the license. We asked DLC what's the best way to handle this, and I what they suggested.
So instead of someone coming to us in March, or another one in July, another one in whatever, it would just be like, here's the date they need to be renewed this fiscal year.
Exactly. There is a 120-day window, but in talking with Sarah, all these capture a 120-day window from now when those dates would hit.
Are these like standalone tobacco shop things, or anybody who sells?
The only one is the artisan vapor shop. The others are all
Corner quick
convenience
and-
Yeah,
stores,
that's what,
gas
okay.
stations.
Yes, everybody.
So some of these are pretty far out though. I mean, and you said there's been no violations of record currently. But if there, between now and the date of the actual renewal of the license, if there was a violation of some sort, would there be a way, to address that? Or now, if we approve it all now, then it's approved no matter what?
And it's a good question. I can ask DLC to see. Yeah, I would have to confirm that, but I know you're the local licensing agency, so I'd have to see what kind of clawback provision you have or something. It makes sense. You approve something, and with anything, then 6 months after a liquor license is approved, there's an egregious violation.
Right. Well, that's my only concern. My only hesitation approving blanket them all right now is if something comes up between now and the date. I mean, I don't want to make more work for us as a board to have to approve them individually, but
I don't remember doing any of these in the last year.
We found it with the tobacco. The town hadn't done it for a number of years. Then we got guidance last year saying the tobacco needs to be renewed as well as the liquor licenses. We typically do the liquor licenses in the March meeting. Then it changed a bit last year with this new law with the different timelines that we ran into. But it was probably your first meeting last year.
It comes all blur.
when is so you said artisan vapor is the one that's coming up most recent, or if we held it off until our next meeting, would it still be?
I think you'd be fine if you wanted to consider the artisan vapor renewal tonight, and then I can get guidance on the others. I don't think there's
I would feel more comfortable with
there's
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
issue with that.
Good.
I'm sorry, what was the vapor?
Artisan, is that the name of the?
It's like.
Aliham Incorporated.
No, that's like
Yeah,
the name of the
Maple
company.
It's in
Place.
Maple Tree Place, yeah.
You heard from them last year to grant their license originally.
Name of the store.
So do we need to have a motion to?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll move to approve 1 year tobacco license renewal for artisan vapor.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Vote nay. Got that. And we'll take up the other licenses after we get the answer to.
I'll get that guidance for your March meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, good question. Okay. Good. Is there any other business?
I
I'd
don't,
like-
I was just gonna say, I'm not sure this is other business, but I have a question on the quarterly report.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is actually, I know it's probably a real pain for your department heads to put this together, but it's really informative and easy to look through and stuff. I'm still really confused by the Community Justice Center. There were just hired 2 temporary part-time employees and I just think I need more information on that whole structure, and I don't know. I know you've asked a couple times, Mike, so I think I'm not the only one could use a little more in-depth understanding of that.
Just on an operational standpoint,
Yeah, it seems like they do an awful lot of really important work with like one full-time person, and
yeah, I can say that the staffing's been a bit of transition. We had 2 full-time people for a while, then we had the second full-time person leave about a year ago. So we've kind of been in limbo a bit. There's been the state funding question as well, and it sounds like the grant from DOC is going to move to the AG's office, kind of what the conversation is right now. So we've been planning, talking about reposting that second full-time position in the next week or two to line that up. But the 2 temporary, and it's down to 1 person working part-time to support the director right now, has been a bridge approach trying to get us back to that staffing model.
so at the end of the day, it's 2, what we budgeted for, I guess, and between the grants and what we budgeted is 2 full-time?
2
employees?
full-time has been I think for about 3 years now, Shirley. We made the second position used to be, I think, 28 hours a week or something like that before. And we bumped it up to 40 maybe 3 years ago.
It's just something I'm still interested in. If we could have, them come in and give us a little presentation about what they do and what they're working on and who's doing what. And I know the board members came, they might be interested in, it's like such a super important piece of our public safety structure. And it's also, and then the CJC. So,
Well, let's try to let's get a presentation on the agenda.
yeah, that would be
Yeah,
great.
thank you. I agree with Gene. I look at what the Williston Community Justice Center offers. They're offering it for 5 to 6 towns.
Yeah.
They have over 200 cases a year. The cases have gone up a lot the last couple of years. It's just a lot. There's a lot more to it than than I ever realized. A lot of mediation, conflict resolution, youth panels, mentorships, internships.
And this new domestic violence responsibility they're picking up, just seems overwhelming. So,
I think that it's a way for us to be proactive on this issue.
Sounds good.
Yes, we'll get set up.
great.
Any other business? Other.
Told my husband I'd be home like 8:30 tonight.
Item last, final thoughts on agenda items from this meeting. Hearing none, declare that we are adjourned.
Thank you.